Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem, coming to you live, in a sense, from the Banff Mountain Film Festival. Came up here for the premiere of North Unknown, about the Alaska expedition with Dave Turner across the Alaskan Range, which is playing this weekend, and ran into Cedar Wright, who is also premiering his film, The Fledglings. Great film. If you haven't seen it yet, go out and grab it. Really cool film about he and Matt Segal learning how to fly. So this is the first time we've had another guest on the show for the second time, and the reason is because Cedar has had an amazing year. He and his team flew off Pico De Orizaba, the highest mountain in Mexico. That's part of the film, The Fledglings. But the last time we sat down with Cedar, he was kind of 6 months in, and he was calling paragliding his sky crack, and he just couldn't get enough. And now it's a year later. He's been traveling all over the world. He's still crazy about paragliding. He still calls it a sky crack. And I just wanted to catch up with him and find out how things were going, and what progression was happening with him, and how he was approaching his training, and what's in his future. And he is right smack dab in the middle of what we like to call the intermediate syndrome. And I thought that'd be really interesting for the guests, for our listeners, because typically I interview people who are kind of at the top of their game, and Cedar certainly has the ability to get there, but we're kind of following his progress on the way up. He had a pretty scary flight that he's going to illuminate you about, flying back through some power lines in this talk, so stick with it. It's hysterical. Cedar's always hysterical, so we had a really nice chat here last night before the films, and just wanted to catch up and thought you would enjoy. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Cedar Wright. Read my mind and look through my soul as our love grew fainter and your face grew wetter, and I see us over now. We just grew out of love. Cedar, welcome back to the show, dude. It's cool to be sitting here with you in Banff at the film festival. We get to see Fledglings, which is rad. It's such a cool film, and congratulations.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, it's definitely the opposite of your film.
A little less serious.
Yeah, a little less hardcore. And definitely a different tone. It's I'm still figuring it out, dude.
You've gone from I was thinking about it on the way in here. You've gone from like newbie to fledgling to beyond,
Yeah, to intermediate syndrome.
You're right smack in intermediate syndrome. I remember that zone for a long time.
Yeah, now I can and I've got enough rope to hang myself with now. It's awesome.
Right, and I know you've had some pretty interesting experiences lately, but before we get into those, it was basically a year, that we talked last time.
Yeah.
A little over a year.
Yeah.
So last time you were about 6 months in. It was full sky crack.
Yeah.
You were just having one. You'd just gone to like 15,000 feet that day with me in Sun Valley and had a little whipper, and you were like, whoa, dude, that was amazing. And so tell me about some of the experiences you had this year.
Yeah, well, so it was just sort of that pace of things just continued, and so I, leading up to the fledgling story, which is, of course, about myself and Matt Segal, who I learned to paraglide with, flying off of Pico De Orizaba in Mexico. Well, leading up to that, Matt went into the Bugaboos to work on this climbing project, and I went just
crazy.
I went obsessive compulsive disorder fully into paragliding, and I was chasing it anywhere I could. My instructor, Matt Hensey, was luckily going to a lot of really interesting places, and so I was just kind of going, wherever he was going, and so, that's how I ended up there in Sun Valley, and, 6 months into paragliding and taking huge collapses and going 15,000 feet in 6 months into paragliding, and being like, I remember you were like, dude, you gotta freaking calm down, dude, because this is how it is all the time. I'm all like, this is how it is all the time. I'm like, I was fucking freaking out. But yeah, so I was lucky to, God, it's crazy. It's been, about a year since I've seen you, and it just feels like a lifetime of crazy, crazy adventures. I've chased the cross country stuff super hard. I've had some incredible flights. I've been to, since I saw you last, since we talked last, I've been to the Sierra Nevada twice.
Mm-hmm. You were out there for nationals.
I was out there for nationals. I saw how serious it can be.
Yeah. That was probably an eye opener.
Yeah, and it seems like
really bad accidents.
Yep, I've seen a lot of. I've seen some carnage. seen some carnage, but my trip out there was awesome. My first day, actually.
You kind of had some personal records, right? So,
yeah, I had my distance. So it was like coming to Sierra. I got my first 50-mile flight. I flew past Big Pine, which was totally outrageous.
Yep.
And
that's an outrageous zone. It just doesn't matter if you fly a mile or 200. It's like crazy out there.
Waltz Point is probably the most outrageous place I've ever paraglided. Now, but now I've kind of been around the block. You know, there's a couple other places that compete. I flew Skinny Ridge and had an outrageous 50-mile flight where I flew to Aspen. Or it was actually almost 60-mile flight to Aspen.
Wicked, dude.
I got up to 17,000 feet.
Holy cow.
And that was an amazing flight. And Skinny Ridge is crazy. That's like Colorado. Like distance record was set there by Pete.
Does that start like Glenwood Springs?
Yep. It actually starts kind of like a little bit
more
west.
Towards the Book Cliffs.
Yeah. Towards the Book Cliffs and towards Carbon.
Outrageous, dude! Highest mountains in Colorado. You're just sending it right over the top, right? To like fly into.
Yeah, you have to do these big crossings. Dude, the Skinny Ridge is pretty wild because you barely have like the LZ in quotation marks because no one ever really goes and lands there because it's an XC site.
Right.
And but you barely have it in glide, and you just like go the other way, like into this horrible valley of rock and doom and trees, and then you catch a thermal, ideally,
right.
or something horrific happens. But it works, and and I was there with the locals, and they would assure me that it would probably be fine. And I ended up having a really amazing flight. I struggled through the first probably third of the flight while the day kind of turned on, and I was pretty low. And then by the time I got to Carbondale, which is maybe 20 miles into the flight or something, I just got boosted to 17,000 feet. Awesome. No oxygen.
Were you hypoxic?
I don't think so. I think I was fine. I mean,
put it together.
Yeah, no, I was fine.
Name.
I remember actually Pete, who has the distance record in Colorado, gave me some advice. Well, a couple things that really helped. He was all like, "Yeah, most people end up, landing in Carbondale because they just kind of run out of stamina, right? It's just because it's hardcore and intense, like mountain thermal flying. Maybe even more rowdy than the thermals I've experienced in the Sierra Nevada."
Really?
And
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was rowdy, man.
Colorado.
Yeah, or actually, and also, yeah, it's crazy there. And but he said, yeah, mental stamina, and then he said, if you start getting really high, maybe start trying to make sure your brain is working. And so he was like, yeah, he's like, I like to do simple stuff, like be like, okay, well, if it's 6,000 feet down there, and I'm at 17,000 feet, how many feet off the ground am I, and if you can do some simple math, then you're fine.
Just keep going.
Just keep going. But it is, so I think, it is like, as far as that flying with O2 stuff goes, if you live in Colorado, right, and you're like, I was like flying my local site there in Boulder, and I was, I was getting all kinds of, like 12, 13, even I got to 15,000 feet in Boulder one day, and so, I was flying a lot, and I was going to altitude kind of all the time, at least to like 10 to 12,000 feet, like on the regular, right? So I think when you're kind of like you're subjecting your body to that, then when you go to 17, it's not as bad.
Not as bad. So you're clearly your stoke is still super high. It is. Like what's happened? Has anything changed in terms of the progression, or has it just been a steady? Is this arc just been, have there been like, whoa, wait a minute, a little bit of a plateau, oh shit, a little bit backwards, or has it just been kind of go, go, go? Have you, tell me maybe a little bit about wing choice, maybe a little bit about, you did the Monarca.
Yeah.
You went down, you flew off the highest mountain in Mexico, which was rad. Huge patience game there.
Yeah.
And from looking at the film, that was not a no-brainer getting off that thing. It looked a little dicey. Matt was super sketch.
Matt was sketchy.
But I mean, talk a little bit about that because at first you were 6 months in, and it was all just like stoke, and now you've probably seen a little bit more of the reality. You've seen a little bit more about what can be done. Tell me something about that.
Yeah, no, the progression has been really, really interesting. going down to Mexico was really, really big for my progression, I think, because going to Valle, it was I was like, I'm going to enter Monarca, just like, I'm just going to go all in, and, a lot of pilots, Trey Hackney, Nate Scales, Farmer, everyone was saying, like doing a comp is like worth like, the 20, 30 cross country flights, right? Like you're going to learn so much. And, so I went down there before the comp. All of a lot of the top pilots were down there. I was flying in these huge gaggles, which is totally outrageous and crazy. It's just like kind of a school of fish, in 3 dimensions, just like just circling up in this rising air. It was totally outrageous.
You were on the hook then.
I was on the Hook 4. Okay. Yep. So I was really lucky, to use some of my like climbing notoriety to kind of reach out to Niviuk, and Niviuk hooked me up. With the Hook 4, they also, which is an amazing wing, dude. That wing is bomber, dude.
Right.
It's like a tank. It's like an air tank.
Just goes wherever.
Oh yeah, and it's just like it'll take some collapses and stuff, but it never really turns, and it's just like it was perfect for where I was at, where I wasn't flying super actively. I was sort of getting it, but like I was having the occasional blow up, like I had in Sun Valley. But yeah, no, the Hook 4 was awesome, and that experience was awesome. But Monarca, like the wind turned on, and it was difficult. It was really difficult. I was like, my whole goal.
Then you start getting pushed around, and actually, Monarca last year was incredibly windy.
It was really windy.
Valle is always windy, but it was really tough conditions, and it was almost like, unless you were on a 2-liner, you weren't really going anywhere.
No.
You just weren't pushing around the course. It was impossible.
Even the deltas and stuff were just falling out of the sky. No. And like, so me on my Hook 4, I was like, I just want to make a turn point. I didn't make a single turn point. I was like, damn it.
You know what though? That's awesome. I remember when Nick Grease won U.S. Nationals a couple years ago in Chelan, he got up, to accept his award, and he talked about one of the first few times, he went to Chelan, and he was on like a pretty hot wing, and he was stoked, and he'd done some training, and he felt like he had a good chance. He didn't make it across the river once. He just went over and lawn darted every single day, like never made it over the wires. It just makes you realize that that happens to everybody.
Totally. Well, and so it's like just to kind of like make that connection. So Nick has been like an awesome mentor for me, and I've been really lucky. I just like, I bumped into Nick kind of through the outdoor industry community, and I think Nick, Farmer, Nate, you guys all saw my like kind of like my unbridled stoke, and you saw the potential, but also like the potential hazards of being so stoked with so little actual information in your brain. But so Nick was really great. He kind of took me. I went out to the comp in Chelan, and Nick took me under his wing, and dude, he hooked me up, dude. We ended up staying in like this mansion on the hill with Bruce Goldsmith. And so, here I am, like, right, it's like, I'm such a motherfucker, right?
The mentor.
Oh, yeah, dude, I'm like a year and a half into paragliding. I'm hanging out with Nick Grease and Bruce Goldsmith in this mansion on this hill. And
well, you know what? There's a really important lesson here, because, I had this great talk a few episodes ago with Jockey Sanderson.
Yeah.
And I think he was the one that said this, but he was like, I said, who do you want to be hanging out with to get better? And he was like, you avoid the ground suck crew. Just avoid them like the plague.
Totally.
And because I kind of did the same thing you did very early on. I went to Haiti with Nick before I even knew him. And I think you just, you make an effort to enmesh. If that's, hang out with the paragliders you want to become like, right? I mean,
totally.
You're enmeshed with the best of the best. You're obviously going to get better.
Totally.
And these are not people that have ground suck problems.
Yeah.
They want to go flying.
Yeah, so we're staying in this mansion, right? And like one day, this is just a good story. One day, it's too windy to fly, right? But everybody's gone up, and Nick's like, expert comp pilot. He's all, no, we're just gonna conserve our energy and hang down here. He's all, it's too damn windy to fly. And then Bruce is like, it looks like we could launch from the backyard in Ridgesoar right now. And I was all, really? I'm all, okay. I'm all like, so I watch Bruce launch. I'm like, holy shit, it's working. And then like Nick launches, and I'm all like, fuck, dude, I guess I have to go for it, dude. And so I launch, and we end up like from this mansion, like next to this lake, we end up like just like benching up like almost 2,000 feet and having the most epic.
Up to the butte, or
not quite up to the butte, but up to the peaks in front of the butte.
Wicked.
And we ended up having the best ridge soaring session of my life.
Wow.
And while everybody was out, and everybody could see us up there, right?
Everybody was not just waiting.
They were all watching us. They all could see us, and we were having this epic soaring session. We were like top landing on these peaks and stuff, and like taking photos.
Wicked.
I mean, it was like by far the best soaring session of my life, you know. And it was like I was all like, man, Bruce Goldsmith's like a sensei.
He is a sensei.
And his son was there. Tyr was there. We were hanging with Tyr.
Cool.
I may or may not have exposed Tyr to his first mushroom trip.
Beep.
Put it in. Don't be a pussy.
Yeah, but it's in. We got an explicit rating. You can say whatever we want. That is awesome. That is awesome. Excellent.
Yeah,
I heard of some good things going down in Chelan.
We had an awesome time. Yeah,
that place was magic.
Yeah, it was incredible.
So when you were in, a recurring theme on this show is, of course, safety and risk.
Yeah.
And trying to kind of spread that knowledge.
Yeah.
As we talked about at the top of the show, you're kind of in that, everybody goes through this. You're in that intermediate syndrome.
I am.
Or intermediate stage, whatever. Maybe not syndrome.
I think I have it.
Maybe you do. And we'll talk about Marshall, bring that out. But
yeah.
When you left Sun Valley, I went through this kind of like, man. And I talked about it with Farmer, and I talked about it with Nate, and I was like, dude, were we too hard on him? Like, do we just fucking harp on this stuff way too much? Because we were seeing like somebody who comes to Sun Valley and flies in the middle of the day after 6 months, like you just don't do that. You're kind of breaking all the rules, And so on the one hand, it was like, dude, if he gets through this, he's going to be epic. On the other hand, it was like, we like him.
We don't want him to get hurt
or killed.
Yeah.
So I felt like we kind of kept trying to put the brakes on you, and I'm wondering, now after a year, was that legit? Was that not legit? Because you and I were talking about it last night. This is something that this industry, we pilots, we harp on this a lot.
Yeah, maybe
too much.
Too much? Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So my opinion, coming from climbing, and my as a professional climber, where there's tons of risk and there's tons of injury and there's tons of death, and it's important to recognize all that stuff. I think there is an unusual obsession with accidents and injury in this sport, and I think that it can make it really hard to have fun flying. Some of the fear and the anxiety that some people can kind of put on you. And so I kind of quickly realized, I'm very good at sort of just compartmentalizing things and taking, taking someone else's emotions and fears and sort of, just like acknowledging them, but then realizing that I feel good about this, and that for me, this is the path I want to be on, And but see, I think we worry a little too much in this paragliding community. I think we obsess over accidents a little too much.
Okay.
But at the same time, right? It's like, I get it. We want to, I'm going to tell my incident story here a little later, and it's like there's a lot of things that you can learn from these stories. So even I get it. Even myself, I get kind of fascinated. I really want to know, well, what happened, And it's interesting. I see some. I see this is a really interesting thing in the community. You see people, they're like, oh, well, there's this tendency to be like, oh, well, he fucked it up. He was, we really want to like kind of reason to ourselves like, well, that couldn't happen to me because I would never do this or that, right? Like, but there's also this element of, it's a risk sport.
Sure.
Don't kid yourself.
Sure.
Paragliding is dangerous.
Yeah.
And if you don't acknowledge that, then it's even more dangerous, because if you're just trying to like convince yourself that this is somehow like a perfectly safe sport, then you're really making it risky, right?
Sure.
And so in climbing, coming from this risk sport of climbing and having done a lot of ropeless climbing and a lot of alpine climbing and stuff where you're constantly assessing risk and you're constantly, you're taking risk and you're, but you're trying to, have like to use your abilities and your, and all the information around you to make smart decisions, it works. It can work that way in paragliding, I believe, but also in paragliding, it is, man, there's shit that you can't see that can get you.
You said something last night that I thought was really interesting. In one, the one big difference is that with climbers, the access to the stuff you're talking about requires talent, ability, training,
athleticism.
Whereas in paragliding, you can kind of be a dipshit and go fly a paraglider, can't you?
A little bit.
Being a little harsh.
I mean, that's a little harsh, but
right. I mean, but you may not have the quote unquote stuff that it takes. That suddenly you're in the air. You know, whether you're new or pushing into where you are, more intermediate or even beyond that. You know, like. Things just suddenly radically change. Whereas with climbing, it's like, okay, I can climb a 513 or a 512 or a 511, or I can aid. Like you
There's a progression.
Just throw yourself on something way above your head. You just don't even get up on the rock.
Yeah, there's more of a progression. There's more dues paid, I think, to get there. And I think that was, that was some of your guys' concern. We were like, well, it's cool. This guy's here in Sun Valley, but. It's only been 6 months, but at the same time,
I think it was kind of like, well, we really should be checking off some things before this. Like there's some things that have been skipped.
Totally.
And I because I was hearing the same thing for sure. Believe me, for quite a while when I was going through the same thing, I was just incredibly stoked, and I didn't have the same kind of fear, I think, factor that many people have. So I think dicey things weren't scaring me as much. So I kept being told over and over again, dude,
you're risking it too much. You're risking it too much.
Yeah.
But that's like the beauty of paragliding. I mean, like, this is my favorite quote. Is Bill Belcourt said, "You can't retrobolt the sky." And so for people who aren't climbers, to explain this quote to them, it is that. Retrobolting is where you basically take a climb and make it safer, right? You add bolts to the climb to make it safer. And you just can't do that in the sky. The sky is inherently dangerous. You can try to make your glider safer and more collapse resistant and all that stuff. But in a sense, right, there's always this inherent kind of gnarliness and rowdiness and risk out there in the air, in that midday mountain air. And that's, I think, part of the attraction for me to the sport. I kind of, like, when I first started climbing, it was a little more old school, and people were a little more willing to go for it. And I've watched, like, with the advent of climbing gyms and sport climbing and bouldering, I've watched people kind of just become like gymnasts, and there's no real, they're milking all the risk out of the sport, right? And so the beauty of paragliding is it's risky.
Yeah,
it's a risk sport, but like
every time you're in the sky.
Courageous, dude. Like, the stuff that you can do in a paraglider is like, it's unreal, dude. Like,
it's totally, it's still completely absurd. Every time I jump off the mountain, I'm like, this is absurd. This is crazy. I'm hanging under a bed sheet.
It's nuts, dude.
So when you think back to last year when I was talking to you, do you have a different approach going forward now than you did then, or is it pretty much get after it, keep doing it?
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's like I have more information. I'm learning a lot about the weather. I can actually go onto XC Skies and and analyze conditions. For myself. I'm still not by no means an expert, but at least, like,
figuring it out.
Yeah, I'm figuring it out. I'm starting to understand. Like different layers of wind, and I'm able to look at a day and kind of get it like a feel for whether it's going to be a pretty good or a great day. But I mean, I don't regret the way I went about paragliding.
Do you think you kind of ran the gauntlet, or not really?
No, I don't
think your approach is. I mean, I think you've been really aggressive, but I think you're also super mindful of the hazards. I think you're also pretty good about going, maybe today's not my day.
Yeah, and I think. For all the things, people are like, oh, well, he went so fast into it. Well, yes, but it's also, well, I'm very fortunate to be a professional climber. So I have, like, and when I went into the sport, I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
I didn't have a 9-to-5. Like, so I, like, racked up, like, like the hours that a lot of pilots probably rack up in a few years in 6 months. Sure. And so I was flying every single chance I could get. And I don't regret that at all, because I built this really great base right away, and I kind of knew in my mind, and from my experiences with risk in climbing, that it's the same in climbing. It's all about currency. It's all about you can improve so much faster if you just never regress, right? So if you're flying like once every weekend, you're kind of
almost just catching up.
You're kind of back where you started all the time a little bit, right? But if you're like flying every single chance that you can get, you know what I mean? Then it's just like the lessons start to build on top of themselves more. And I think that in some ways, I would argue that that's a safer approach. And especially so, and I was talking about this with Henzi, and he saw this when we learned to paraglide, right? Because we were able to come down and be like 2 weeks all in. And it was like, and we eat, sleep, breathe paragliding for the entire time, right? And Henzi was an amazing teacher, and he was there for us from the moment we got up and we're having coffee together and just talking about like, thermals or about like launching and kiting.
Dribble all day.
All day, dude, literally. And then we go and we have these epic days, of flying. We were flying off mountains within our first 4 or 5 days because it was all so compressed. And it was just like, there was no downtime. And Santa Barbara was great,
every day.
God bless like Eagle Paragliding and Rob Sporer for like
shout out to those
making,
guys.
love to those guys for making that all possible for me. And love to Matt Henzi for giving me this incredible gift. But so we've been talking, and that's now kind of how Matt wants to. He's now since then taken some other really great pilots. Really great professional athletes. I'm sorry. He's been working with some professional kayakers, and he's using that same approach. And he just worked with a really good friend of mine, a climber, Josh Finkelstein, who's got the sky crack. I'm like, dude, he's all like, he's got it bad, just like me. Yeah, I'm all, dude, I know. Right. And he worked with him, and he's like doing this really immersive, condensed approach to teaching, and I think it's really effective. And I think that his students are walking away with a lot more skills because they're not just going for the weekend and like learning a tiny bit of kiting, and then you know what I mean, and then like they come back and then they learn a little more, and then it's like it's really hard to
And I think it's really discouraging, and I think that Eagle's such a great place to do that. Like, I know Farmer used to always get so discouraged trying to teach in Sun Valley because you just don't get any sky time.
Yeah.
It's fickle. There's a lot of wind. And so, you work with somebody for 3 months and they're still not at their P2.
Yeah.
And it's really discouraging for them.
Yeah.
I keep doing it.
Yeah.
Man, I can't even get my license, so yeah.
I mean, I think, for if there's anyone out there listening who's like just thinking about getting into it or just getting into it, definitely glad I went to Santa Barbara. Probably Salt Lake would also be a good place to go. Like someplace with consistent flying where you can like really build your base. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's like what's kept me, for the most part, incident free, except for this one incident that we're going to get to.
Let's hear it.
Recent incident.
Yeah, let's hear it, Marshall.
Yeah. Okay. So I've been, I've had a lot of flights. I've set some goals for myself. Some of my goals from my local flying site in Boulder, Colorado, were to fly to Lions. Which was like right after I saw you. 6 months in, I was like, I want to fly to Lions, just like a 15-mile flight, but pretty damn technical. Mm-hmm. And then I did that, and then I managed to do that like almost 15 times this year. So exceeded that goal. And then I flew way past Lions. I flew to Loveland a couple times. I was like, then I was like, I want to fly to Golden. And then I flew to Golden, and I flew to Golden again, and then I flew past Golden to Morrison. And I was like, all right, I'm like I'm putting it together. I'm like.
Before you go on, I want to make a point of that to the listeners. It's really, really, really important to do that when you fly. Don't just huck yourself off the hill and fly around like a dope.
Yeah.
You should always have a goal. It should always be considered training. Because training is fun. I'm not saying it shouldn't be fun. Those are always fun to do that. But this is a really good way to get, because then you can make days that have really strong inversions or really light or really technical or, otherwise you get all wrapped up in this, I want to go 100, 150, 200, and if you don't get those, it becomes really discouraging, and then you only start flying the best days.
Yeah.
That's not how you get good. You have to fly as much as you possibly can, and when you fly, make it purposeful.
Totally. And that's one of the things I love about paragliding is that it's like a climb. Rock climb is always kind of the same. It's static. You can go to it and you can test yourself against this climb, and you can count on it to be basically that climb, But paragliding every day is so different, and you have these days that are inverted and the lift's really low and it's kind of rowdy.
And day twice.
Yeah, and I like all those days, and a lot of people are like only fly the epic days, and I can see how if you've been flying for 15 years, like Bill Belcourt mostly flies the epic days because he wants to fucking go send it, and he's done that. But where I'm at, like flying the not epic days is the most instructive because it's like, it's one thing to fly to lions when you're getting up to 15,000 feet over Boulder. It's another thing to fly to lions when you're getting up to 8,000 feet.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got almost no room to work, and it's technical, and it's
super
tiny
technical.
little glides and lots of little climbs.
Yeah. You got to work it.
It's like flying a Valle.
Yeah, and like, so like I learned a couple lessons. Like sometimes, just like random things I learned. Like sometimes instead of just pushing on, it makes sense to run back to where you had that little tiny bubble of lift, And that's really paid off for me on a lot of flights where I'm like, this isn't working. Retreat to where you know that you can maintain, and then usually if you can maintain over there, it's gonna boost off.
Dude, that is Kriegel's magic. If you watch him in the X Alps, that's what he's always doing. Everybody's pushing, and then they land. Kriegel's constantly going back.
Yeah,
he's staying in the air, and that's that patience game always pays off.
Yeah, so that patience thing has been really big. And then the other big thing for me, as far as people out there trying to figure it out, that's really helped me is just like getting better at thermaling and really learning to to top out thermals, because that's not so easy. And thermals like do all this crazy stuff with the wind. They drift all over the place. So awareness of what the wind is doing to the thermal, and really kind of, because a lot of the thermals will stair step and like snake and do all these weird things. And the more you can become intuitive and figure out where the thermal is going, the higher you can get into the thermal. And then if you can get up to base, which can be tricky on days where there's different wind layers and things are kind of funky, and sometimes there's a little bit of a crux to get through to the next part of the thermal, if you can start to figure that stuff out, then it really helps.
That's really wicked. I don't know if you'd be aware of this, but there's no way you could have said that sentence a year ago.
No.
You were clueless about that.
No, and so now I remember that day where I was getting whacked and then eventually got to 15,000. Gavin, for the audience, Gavin was like, he was all, dude, come on. And I just couldn't, the thermal was drifting and stair stepping and doing all this weird stuff. And I was just like, my move was just to turn in circles. And that's just not enough. You need to turn in the circles. You need to push into the wind or push out of the wind, depending. And you need to, be really
explore
intuitive.
To find the core.
Yeah. And learn to sense what's going on. And that really happened since I saw you. I got much better at thermaling. And that's what really, that was the most important thing for being able to do these bigger XCs that I managed to pull off early in my career, is just topping out thermals, basically. So it was I don't know, for those of you out there who are trying to put it together and figure it out, those are two things that help me, and hopefully it helps you too.
And I think what you'll find, if I could kind of look into your future, I think the next big step will be gliding, which is the real crux.
Totally.
That's what separates the men from the boys.
Totally.
On big distances, because it's almost unteachable.
And so I'm getting a little better at that. And actually I had this day, and this is a good lead in to my incident that everyone I'm sure wants to hear.
Yeah.
I was in Marshall. I just showed up in Marshall, never flown the site before. But it was a big day. And, Gavin Fridlin was there. We had, Henzie had come out. I actually flew Henzie out, brodealed him out there because I just wanted to, hang with my homie. And, we had a lot of really, Revis was there. Cool. And, a lot of great pilots. And I actually did really good that day. I had an epic day. I flew all the way out to San Jacinto, which is quite a ways. I did like over a 50-mile out and back. I top landed at I top landed and drove the shuttle vehicle down.
Oh, epic.
Dude, I felt like a god among men. I'm all, oh, dude, I got this. And one of the things actually that I nailed that day was I kind of just was like, just feeling the air and just kind of feeling the vibes. And I got into this weird I found this little squirrely little convergence thing, and I found this sick little seam, and I watched Gavin kind of just like take a different line, and luckily I had him, he took off a little before me out on the back, because we all I ended up with Revis and Gavin and a few other people out there. And they were all, dude, who's the fucker on the B glider? I was stoked, I was like doing good. And I watched Gavin take this different line, and it was just not the right line. So I was like, well, what would happen if I just pushed a little deeper, and I just got on this this convergence thing, this weird little seam, and I got this crazy Bodie line, and I was just I kept on just pushing in a little deeper, and that just happened to be the move, and I was feeling it, and I was gliding better. I was gliding better.
What happened there too? I learned a really critical lesson very early on with Nick. Went down to Haiti. I mean, I was really newbie at flying XC, and it was, I think, the last flight we were there, and we took off, and we kind of cut the cord, like we were going in deep into Haiti, and he took this line that was like, it was just so much clearly better, right?
Yeah.
And but my line was like,
felt safer,
and there was a lot of sun, and it just like, and I stuck with it all the way to the ground, and I was just like, this makes more sense. This makes more sense. And it's exactly, gliding is exactly like thermaling. Farmer really talks about this, like in competitions. You can be, 30th off the thing going off on a glide, 30 gliders in front of you. You've got 30 people mapping the air. You should ping pong through them.
Totally.
Because most people will just ride it out,
Yeah.
But bam, you're onto them, a little bit of height. Bam, you're onto them, a little bit of height. So in that case, you clearly had the better line. It's just like somebody in a better thermal.
Totally, it is.
You don't need to do this for 5 turns.
Yeah.
You need to do this for 10 seconds. Whoa, that guy's climbing better than I am. I'm going to go to his thermal.
Totally.
You can make it, leave.
Exactly.
And it's the same thing with glides.
It is.
There's always better air, and if you're by yourself, okay, that's Jedi. But if there's other people around, you don't pause.
You use
so
that.
Gavin made a mistake there. I mean, I don't know Gavin, but he made a
amazing
mistake.
pilot.
Amazing pilot. I'm just saying, like in that case, and you can't let things like, oh, well, that's Cedar. He doesn't know what he's doing. That's irrelevant.
Totally.
That guy's in a better glide than me. You're on it.
You're right on it. Yeah, totally. I love that. I love the gliding. I guess, before we get into the incident, one other, for people out there who are trying to get better, one other thing that's been really helpful, and it really helped me actually, and I managed to do the classic flight from Waltz to Bishop. I was super stoked. It's over 100 kilometers, one of my 200 kilometer flights, which I'm pretty proud of, and what I've learned is that usually the right decision is, it's always cat and mouse. You always got to kind of make sure you're not making a stupid decision, but it's almost always better to dive in a little deeper in the mountains and to just push in a little more to the terrain, because that's where things are triggering. And then you can start, and then you can start benching up, right? And so it's like, I just kind of learned that it seems committing at first, but if you can just play that cat and mouse game and be like, okay, I've got the LZ, whatever that might be, I've got a place to land, and I'm going to push it a little deeper and just see if there's something there, and there's usually something there, and then you take that, and now you've got that LZ, and you got another LZ, and now you're going to push in even a little more deeper, and you can bench up.
I think what you're discovering there, and what you'll discover more and more, is that when you get better, then it's not really a question mark. Is there going to be a climb over there? You know there is.
Totally.
You know that, okay, I can fart around out here in 2s and 3s. I can go in there and get a ripper.
Totally.
And I know that's going to be work. It's been baking. It's in Waltz. I'm underneath Whitney. It's baking southeast for the last 3 hours. That's the place I need. And then you're never surprised. You'll never get in there and be like, it will always work. If it should work, it works.
The Sierra works, dude. In some ways, it's funny because the Sierra has this reputation, kind of. But in some ways, there's a lot of things about Sierra that are pretty straightforward, right? Like, you go to the ridge, you get the climb. It's like sagebrush everywhere. There's landing zones everywhere. It's just the thermals are nuclear, Yeah.
That's just strong.
It's just really strong. But in some ways, the flying can be pretty, at times can be straightforward. Although I went over and flew Boy Scout, which is over Mono Lake, and that was a lot less straightforward, more technical. Yeah. There's more different valleys and different things
Lake
going
up
on.
to Tahoe, when we did that Sierra trip back in 2012 with those guys, that Mono Lake to Tahoe flight was you totally leave 395 like that. Yeah, it's gonzo for all day basically. Totally, you're in there then.
So I did that. I made that. I didn't make it to Tahoe, but I made the whole committing. I did the whole committing section of that flight on that day, and it was outrageous. And I got to 17,999 feet, aka, dude. I got so high, dude. I was like, it was too dangerous to leave the thermal, so I had to just take it to the top. It was
7. It was amazing you came out at 17.
It was 999. I must leave the thermal. Yeah.
Okay, so
outrageous.
So you've had these a whole succession of 50-mile flights. You flew off top of Pico De Orizaba in Mexico. You've done some comps. You, by all standards, you've had an epic year.
It's been outrageous
until just recently.
So yeah, so let's rewind to that story I was telling you. I was like doing really good in Marshall. I was hanging with the big dogs on my B glider. I was like, man, I'm kind of getting good at this. I wasn't getting necessarily cocky, but I've always known about this. I was feeling it, and I've always known there's this thing called the Divine Smackdown. It's what I call it, and it was coming for me. And so the next day,
time to be humble.
Next day, it was windy. It was pretty windy, and I actually had a couple. I'd put the wing up and kind of gotten tied in knots a couple times. So I didn't get off the hill quite as quickly as I would have wanted to. Mm-hmm. And Mitch was there, and Henzi, and so we got a bunch of Enzos in the air, Evan Boucher, a bunch of really, really good pilots, mm-hmm. Competitive pilots, and they all ping out, and then they all start heading over the back, so I'm a little behind, and I'm like, this is the move, we're going over the back, and so I just start following everyone. I learned later that it's pretty uncommon to go over the back in Marshall. Apparently, yeah. That's so I didn't have a lot of information. It's a big committing move. It was a really good lesson. It was pretty windy, and I was having a real time, kind of getting established and getting out. And I was getting all these frisbee thermals that were frisbeeing too much and weren't going to allow me to go over the back. And I kept pushing back and trying to get something. And I felt kind of uncomfortable. I felt pretty deep. And pretty committed, and
like you wouldn't be able to get back to the launch, and you're kind of in that big gully on the backside, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So in Marshall, it's there's the launch, and then there's this there's crestline back there, but crestline feels pretty deep, especially when there's a lot of wind, because there's this big gully between that and the launch. And there's no real great LZs down there. There's some stuff that you could probably wing it into, but you're not looking down there being sweet, I got a great LZ. You're more I'm kind of fucked right now. Yeah. And so I started to feel, first lesson, fly your own flight. Fly your own flight. Yep. That's the most important lesson, is just you have to fly your own flight. Especially,
not those guys are leaving me.
Yeah,
I should be with them.
It's one thing if you're with them,
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's another thing if you're playing this rushed game of catch up, Yeah. And so you're not getting the climbs as high as they are. You're not making the transitions, and then not to mention that you're on a B glider and they're on Enzos. Mm-hmm. And so obviously they're going to outglide you.
Sure.
And but fly your own flight. So eventually
fly your own flight.
Yeah. Eventually, also if it's windy, be respectful of that. Mm. It was a windy day. So be really, really give everything a wider berth. And really be constantly watching the winds, and then especially
coming in from the west.
Yeah.
Assuming.
Yeah. And then especially when you make a big transition into a completely new valley or new area, really, really take in all the information you can to know what's happening there, because what was happening was, so eventually I got a nice climb, and I peeled off the back, at about a similar altitude that those guys peeled off at. And of course, they're on hotter gliders, and so they got a better glide coming off the back, and they made it into the flats. And so
they went over crestline, over the power.
And Gavin, who was on a Trango XC3, made it. He made it not quite into the flats, but over this ridge. He very high over the ridge, and he was established, And I went on the radio, and I was like, "Hey, Mitch, what do you think I should do? Hey, Gavin, Gavin." They all kind of piped in, and Gavin was like, "Well, I'm getting a nice climb over here at this ridge," and Mitch was like, "Well, I went to the other side of the lake, and it worked for me," and I was like, "Okay," it was this crux moment where I had to make a decision, and I decided, well, Gavin's got to climb over the ridge. I'm going to this ridge, and so I go into the ridge I have a million times. You go into the ridge, there's going to be everything's going to be triggering off of it. The wind's coming into it. I was like, well, I'll be able to soar the ridge and then find a thermal, right? It's going to be total textbook. Yeah. And as I came in, I was like, okay, about 400 yards back are some high tension power lines, and so just be mindful of that, Mm-hmm. And I come in and into the ridge. I'm like, okay. I kind of come in. I'm testing it out. I go to where I would guess the thermal is going to be kind of triggering up, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a little thermal. like, cool, perfect, this is gonna work. I turn in it, and I'm like, oh no, it's sort of like it's
a trick.
It's like, or it's like it's not strong enough to be pushing through the wind and be steep enough to really take me where I want to go. And I'm like, oh, there's those power lines, so I can't really frisbee back, or else I'll go into the power line. So I'm like, okay, that's not gonna work. So I like kind of just like turn back into the wind, and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of glide down the ridge and go look somewhere else for a thermal. And then I'm like, whoa, like right in that moment, right? It was already strong
Glide
wind.
speeds. Nothing.
0. I'm going 0 miles an hour. I'm going straight down. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to land on this ridge, And so I'm like, and at this point I've gone from the like, oh, whoa, it's windy, half speed bar. Oh, whoa, I'm kind of going backwards, full speed bar. Okay, I'm going straight down. I'm going to land on this ridge. And then,
is that doable?
It was, I was like straight over this road. I was like, at this point, I'm still like, oh, whoa, it's really windy. I'm sort of like, just like, I'm sinking out. This is how it felt. It's too windy. I'm sinking out. There's no lift. I'm sort of a little pinned back here, but I'm just going to I had a road right underneath me, and I'm going straight down. I was like, I'm going to land going straight down on full speed bar. I'm going to let off the speed bar at the right moment, and then I'm going to like kill it with the seas and like going to have like a, kind of rowdy, dicey, but acceptably, not dangerous landing. And then like as I got lower and lower, compression.
Yep.
And so now I'm going backwards, on full speed bar. And now I'm a little like, fuck. So now I'm like looking behind me, right? And I'm like, because I'm like, okay, now I'm not landing on the road anymore. I'm going to land in the bushes or something. And I'm like, oh, kind of no. But I'm like, just keep your shit together. You can land backwards going in the bushes. It'll be fine. It'll actually be perfect because like these bushes look soft, and I'll kind of like just drape myself in a bush, and then the wing will kind of, I won't get drugged too much, hopefully.
Right.
And then I kind of come down to the compression band and into the rotor. And I take this monster collapse. Wha-bam! And so I'm off a speed bar immediately. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like,
recover.
Yeah, recover the wing,
How high were you at this point?
At this point, I'm like about like 150, 200 feet off the ground.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
You're in a serious situation.
I'm in like a bad situation.
You're in a bad place, yeah.
I fucked it up.
Yep.
And so now I'm just like 100% just like, because I'd already taken this like kind of pretty good collapse and like kind of pendulum, and I could see the writing on the wall. If you take another big collapse like this, it could be like a pendulum into the ground. Mm-hmm. And so my like main priority is no longer like maintaining speed. It's just like keeping the wing open. And it's super turbulent, and it's just the wing surging all over the place. And luckily at this point I've gotten pretty good at active flying, and I'm doing everything I can to keep the wing open. And I'm like, at the same time, I'm looking backwards. I'm like, fuck, the fucking power line's right there. And there's kind of nothing I could do. There was a moment earlier on where I could have, right when I started to go straight down, I could have realized how fucked I was, and immediately turned and run and like gone over the power lines, like 50 feet over the power lines, kamikaze style, and over the ridge. Would have been a better move than what happened to me.
Right.
I would have gotten rotored as I went over the other side of the ridge.
Sometimes is But that's one of those ones where you would have had to you had no time. You had to, I gotta go. Turn and go.
Yeah. I mean, certainly if I ever found myself in a situation like that again, I would. You know what I mean? There's like I've had this experience, and this is now the best part.
Yeah.
Is like I'm like frigging catching collapses. I'm looking back. I'm like, I can see the fucking power lines, and these are these huge high tension lines hanging about. Full on big burly ones, like 3 and 3, like 3 lines, kind of like running, opposite each other.
Oh, dude, this is a horror story,
dude. And so now I'm like, fuck, and then I just blow like a leaf in the wind through the power lines.
Oh my god,
dude! I go through the power lines. My pod bounces off a power line.
Oh my god.
And at this point I'm like, I'm just like survival mode, and it's crazy because I remember thinking I was all okay, your wing is coming through, it's either gonna catch and you're gonna be hanging in these power lines, or it's gonna release and you're gonna hit the ground. And so I just like instinctively, God bless Henzi for teaching me the PLF and being like, dude, if you ever, PLF, I went into PLF mode. The wing rips out because I've gone through the lines and the wing goes through the lines, it rips through the lines, and then I free fall about 45 to 50 feet. But with the wing sort of reinflates a little bit, it slows me down, I PLF, I pound into the luckily right into this bush and sandy bush area.
Perfect.
And I'm fine.
Unbelievable.
I don't have a scratch on me. I've taken worse falls climbing. It was like
you blew through high tension power lines and fell out of the sky, and you walk away.
Dude,
unbelievable.
So lucky.
Unbelievable.
It was
awesome.
just dumb luck, and I know that, and and it was definitely. I felt like I was walking around feeling like a ghost, like one of my 9 lives was gone.
Did you do kind of this whole thing? Like,
I was
pat yourself down, like, am I okay?
Yeah, no, totally. I was like, am I okay? Yeah. It was so funny. I went up to shoot some video to show how extreme this thing had happened to me, and I kind of slipped on this rock and banged my knee, and literally that was way more painful. Then I was like, ow! And then I was like, you should be careful because you've run out of luck. You
have no more luck left.
Yeah, you got no more luck left.
Out of the jar.
Oh, dude, and I knew that I'd gotten out of jail for free, and that I easily could have died. And of course it was well, how come I didn't get electrocuted, right?
Yeah.
And we started looking into it, and I think it was just that I only touched the first 3 lines, and I would have had to connect it with those other back 3 lines, and I don't think I ever touched them, and so I never made a connection between the 2 different currents.
Right.
Because then somebody was like, oh yeah, I had this friend and he blew his hand off when he went through power lines, and people die going through power lines. It's serious business.
So scary.
And I literally just got lucky. And
you must have thought about this a lot. You had the 3 things when you were talking about it, but there have been some other takeaways even okay, obviously don't get in that situation, but that's everybody knows that one.
Totally.
But because I think we all have been in situations I got in a power line situation just like that in France training for the X-Ops last year, terrifying, or the year before. And and I often think about okay, well, now you're in that. What are there other possibilities?
What are your moves?
When you were in the compression, were you low enough then to have just ditched it, or is there anything you could have done that?
So it was
other than it sounds like the best thing was that
turn and run. I should have immediately turned and run, but at the same time, I was going straight down, and it seemed like I was just gonna just land on the road at that point. So right. It was a little, I don't want to make excuses, but I think it was a little bit of bad luck. I think that I came in and it was an acceptable amount of wind, and I think a big thermal triggered, and just it was just overpowered, that combined, made so much wind. But also I think that that the wind, because I was going over the back, the wind was strong, and so it was kind of rushing down off those mountains. There was a lake there. There was just a lot of things that made that not a good place to go. It
sounds like maybe your first lesson, fly your own flight, was the number one thing, because
exactly.
You're with guys that are on much hotter wings.
Yeah.
You didn't respect that margin enough.
No.
You needed another grand.
I did.
That from what they left at. You fought it out. Oh, I'm at the same height they are. Well, that's not enough.
No, I needed to fight it out more. I needed to stay. I needed to get higher. And it's hard to say. There's a lot of different things. The other big one is just respect. Respect the wind. When it's windy conditions, just give everything a much larger, much wider berth, basically, mm-hmm. And everybody who flew that day was like, yeah, rowdy, crazy day. I talked to Mitch. He was all, dude, you did everything that you could. It was kind of a little bit of bad luck.
Yeah.
Honestly, dude, if I'd been on a C wing, I think I would have hit full speed bar and gotten out of there. Because it was a compression ridge blowback situation. Now I'm not getting on a C wing. But
right. No, just the reality of it.
Yeah, there was there was a lot of. It was a little bit of bad luck.
Yeah.
And it was really quite traumatizing,
Yeah.
And so I pack up my wing. My wing's destroyed. And I'm on this paragliding trip, right? Me and Henzi have a week of paragliding. So I'm I was flying the Akuma at this point, which is Niviuk's kind of hot B, but it's just done. It's destroyed.
Yeah.
And but I pack it up, and I start hiking down. I immediately decide, I shouldn't take the road. I'm gonna go down this gully, and it would just end up, dude. It was just insult to injury, dude. Just the most horrendous bushwhacking, dude. Just ticks and stickers and loose rock, and I'm just bushwhacking down to the road. and then I hitched a ride back, and then I'm just like, telling my story and kind of processing what had happened to me, because it was really, I was little PTSD kind of going on. But I knew that I had to get a glider right away.
You had to get back on the horse.
I had to get back on the horse right away, and luckily, bless Gavin's heart, he lent me his old ragged out Rush 4, and so the next day, me and Hensie went up and we launched, and it was like kind of an inverted, not good day at Marshall, but we got like a really nice flight. Flew like past like.
Were you feeling jittery in the beginning? Were you feeling a little off, or it was just?
I kind of was fine.
Swept it under the rug. Good.
I swept it under the rug.
I think sometimes it's nice to, like, if you're, unless it's like so traumatic that you can't deal with it, you got to get back on the horse and just keep flying.
I'm so glad I did, and I knew. Well, I was like, obviously, I was just like, I just knew that I just needed to fly my own flight, and that's what I did. And so Hensie kept on like just taking off, and I was just like being patient and like waiting until the thermal really fired off and getting really good climbs. And because of that, I actually got ahead of Hensie a little bit at points, because I was just flying my own flight and doing my own thing and using my own intuition and flying my glider the way it needed to be flown to be safe. And so I was kind of back in the game. And next day, that evening, we drove up and we launched from Flynn's and had an epic flight. I flew. Hensie tried this different line, tried to do the mono line, and ended up just kind of landing in Benton. And I just like kept to the mountains, and it just like as soon as Hensie like left, it just started getting better and better. And I like ended up like getting boosted to 17,000 feet over what's it called, the peak there at the end, Boundary Peak. Boundary Peak, and then I punted off into Nevada like this. Yeah, like I got like this epic 10-mile glide, that one little climb. And then Hensie managed to, in the time that I kind of glassed off my way along, and then in the time that I had like finished that flight, Hensie managed to get back to the car. Luckily, there's some other pilots gave him a ride, and then like was there right where I landed and had like a beer waiting for me. I literally like flared and grabbed a beer, and it was like I was like, I love you, Hensie. It was awesome, and I was like, all right, back on the horse, and came back to Boulder and had some nice flights, and I've had a couple of really good. Just yesterday, I climbed Mount Yamnuska here, and then I brought my little mini wing, and I flew from the base and did like a 1,500 foot descent back to the car, which is a really cool culmination of my climbing and my flying skills. So yeah, I'm back on the horse, but I'm like cautious, and I'm aware of that things can go wrong really quickly, and that I have a lot to learn, and that especially when you're moving into new valleys, into new air systems, to really, really, really take in all the information, be super aware. I just didn't realize how windy it was. Yeah. That was like my mistake once I decided to go over the back. Yeah. Was just not respecting the wind and how strong it was. And, but yeah, I also learned that I'm indestructible. That's a perfect lesson. That's a great takeaway. That's a great takeaway. You cannot be hurt. Yeah, no, I'm like indestructible. I just keep doing dumb shit because it turns out fine for you now. Okay, well, you and I have to go watch some films. So that's a perfect end. Just real briefly, tell me what your plans are for this next year, and then we'll a year from now we'll hook up again, and we'll have the third series of the Cedar Wright progression. Yeah, the Cedar Wright, the progression. Yeah, so to all those people out there trying to push it and get better, hopefully the few things there that I've learned will help you. And where is it going? Well, so the big goal, my goal was to fly 100 miles this year. It didn't work out. I had some really good opportunities to do that when I was hanging out with Nick Grease in Salt Lake City. We flew Horse Heaven and Low Angle Butte, which are two major distance areas where friggin' Belcourt just got his like longest flight. Yeah. So rad. Like, yeah. He almost got me on that one. I know, dude. He came with a UK short. I know, dude. Which is so awesome, dude. Like, what a great sport. He's like in his 50s now. You know what? You know what's even the coolest thing about that? So like a few days after that, he came up for Nate's event. And I was like, Nate, man, I was watching Bill, I was watching your guys' flight just minute by minute, and I was like, you totally had me. And I said, I'm sorry, like that, you really deserved it. That was an epic flight. Like, are you bummed? It was like 5K short. It was almost,
And he goes, Gavin, that would have been criminal to take your record on that flight. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, I would have been so disappointed. I'm so glad I didn't get it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, dude, I was flying right down a freeway on a perfect day with these popcorn clouds. Like, there's no terrain. I wasn't flying over 5 mountain ranges. Like, no, that's not legit. That wouldn't be legit. I mean, like, what a cool dude.
Oh, dude, he's like cool the all-time, like Bill Cort. Yeah, Bill Cort's like
sensei.
He's like, yeah, definitely one of my heroes in the sport, and
such a gentleman.
And I love to see that, you know, it's exciting for me, right? I'm 40 now, and that I could, you know, even though I'm into the sport relatively late, that I could like do some pretty amazing stuff, that I can continue to progress in the sport, because it's not just a pure genetic like physicality sport. It's a experience and intellectual sport.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited for the future. I of course would love to fly 100 miles. I'd like to fly 100 miles in the flats. I'd like to fly 100 miles over mountain ranges. You know, I'd like to continue to explore my local area. I'd like to fly new lines in my local area. You know, not many people have flown to the crest. I think just a couple. They're out of Boulder and heading up towards the Rocky Mountains.
My last guest, Kelly Freena, had a really good thing to say, I thought, about distances. You know, that instead of, you know, being... He just thought, like, chasing distances kind of, you know, it can leave you distraught. You know, you're on the ground, you didn't get it, damn it. You know, instead of just being like, holy cow, I just had an awesome flight. But he was talking about, like, I think one of the things you're doing really well is you're nailing all the steps. You're getting the ground handling. You're getting the different wings. You're getting the, you know, you're training.
Yeah.
And the distances come.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like, instead of, you know, it's just being there on the right day and with the right weather. But it's really more. I like that approach. That if you you know, if you just keep laying the foundation and keep, you know, identifying weaknesses in your game and solving those, then the distances just follow.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's like it's like those. It's probably like, for me, what's really helped me more than anything is those little flights on those really hard days, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's just as rewarding as the longer flights I've had on the more textbook classic days. You know, I really like those days, and they're a little more risky and a little more kind of hairball, because you're never that high off the ground, and you know, and you're doing way more transitions, and you're catching way more thermals to make it work. But I love those technical low days, and dude, I just love paragliding. I love it so much, dude. I'm fully sky cracked out. It's like the first, you know, it's like I love it as much as rock climbing, and
that's so cool.
I spent the last 20 years chasing that, and I'll probably spend the next 20 chasing paragliding, and you know, hopefully I can stay safe, and but also have some amazing adventures, dude. Finally, I want to fly over Broad Peak someday. Antoine Girard, dude.
I know.
Shout out to that, dude. That's like literally the most badass thing I've ever heard of, dude.
I know. Yeah,
it's insane.
So cool.
Dude.
It just I love where we're going. You know, it's just really incredible that they're building us wings now that we can be even more absurd on all the time.
Totally.
And it's so cool watching. You know, it's not just the half a dozen guys anymore.
No.
It's a world of pilots all over the place just doing cool stuff, just looking at maps in new ways. And, you know, Ben Jordan, all solo, flying across BC and Alberta.
That was really
37
cool.
days. That is really badass, you know?
Yeah,
There's just some really cool things going down, and happy to have you part of it. That's cool,
dude. I can't wait to kind of add to the story. You know, I know it's going to take time, but hopefully someday I want to catch a thermal off Trango Tower like Antoine Girard did. You know, like for sure in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Like if I can like at least have a crack at that, I'm going to take it. You know, I want to fly Pakistan really badly. I want to vol-bib in the Sierra. I want to, you know, I want to do more of this, like, you know, like kind of more speed wing, mini wing, mountain descent stuff, where you climb up and fly off, you know, like I did there in Pico De Orizaba. And so watch the Fledglings.
Watch the Fledglings.
Yeah, it's going to be touring in different film festivals. I'm really proud of it. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, hey, how can I get into paragliding?
It's super inspiring, super fun.
I think
it's great to see, you know, it's great to see not the experts making a film. It's great to see you guys going through a lot of the stuff we were just talking about.
Totally.
And you did it in a really, really good way.
The progression. I'm proud of it, and people really love it. It's playing here at Banff Saturday night, and yeah, it's gonna be around. It's gonna be touring around. There's a shorter version that you can watch for free thanks to the North Face, but which is about like 13 minutes. But there's a full 26-minute version that right now you can only see at film festivals. But soon you'll be able to pick it up on Vimeo, and and then we'll see what the next film is. Maybe it'll be me and Gavin. It'll be. I'd love to do something with you someday.
I like that. Let's do it.
Maybe we'll bring Nick.
Yeah, there you go. Very cool.
For some comic relief.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much. Let's go see some films. And for the audience, go see Fledglings. It is awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's touring right now at 5 Point. It'll be touring with Banff, I'm sure, too. So, yeah.
Telluride.
Cool. Thanks very much. And we'll pick this up in a year from now.
Yep. See you guys out there. See you guys in a thermal somewhere.
Awesome.
Yep.
Cheers here. Well, I hope you got something out of that. Always great to sit down with Cedar Wright, world famous climber and filmmaker turned paragliding addict. It was really cool to see where he's come in this last year, and hope you got some nice lessons out of some of his progression. As always, all we ask for is $1 a show. If you got something out of this or one of the previous episodes, you'll find the donate button on cloudbasedmayhem.com, right on the podcast page, or any of the specific podcasts. If you are just discovering the show, highly encourage you to go back and check out one of the previous episodes. There's so much good knowledge there from guys like Jockey Sanderson, Matt Segal, Will Gadd, many others. We've got quite a few of these in the can right now, so I'm getting some help editing. It takes a long time to edit these, so your little donation goes a long way, I promise you. Thank you so much. If you can't donate, just give us a rating on Google Play or Stitcher or iTunes, however you get your podcasts. And we'll see you on the next show. Thanks for listening. Cheers.